Right now, we do not currently have a president and we do not currently have a treasurer. So if one of you would like to call the meeting to order. And
Yeah, okay, Dan beat me.
and then your first order of business is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of February 21st, 2024.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes of the regular meeting of February 21, 2024.
Second. All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Camera's on, right?
Yes.
Sustain?
Abstain.
Abstain.
All right, the next thing on your agenda is election of officers. If you look at our bylaws for the Auburn Water District, election of officers annually should be done by ballot. What I've done is I've made a sheet out for each of you. What's on this sheet is a listing of our current positions up at the top. Currently, the trustee president is vacant. Andy Titus was president, acting president, and then he was also treasurer. I'm currently superintendent. Cindy Cass is currently your clerk, and our auditor is RHR Smith. So we need to elect a president. So I put everybody's name who's on the board and eligible. I put their current term expiration, so when your term on the board will expire, just so you guys can have that for reference. And then just circle one of those names for just one name for president each, and then each of you circle one for treasurer. And then if you want myself, Eddie, and RHR Smith to continue, circle those. But I'll pass these around if you want to fill that out, fold it, and hand it back.
Go. Can we do, when you're done, can we do discussion?
Sure.
Is there anyone here who wants to be president? I think that'd be a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Was someone
I
like
wanna
that
circle.
position? Rather than all of us going willy-nilly all these and everyone gets a vote.
It's a smart idea.
I think Mark is a strong word, but I'd be willing to do it if I've moderated a nonprofit board before, so as a moderator, I
Jason's good.
can fill the role.
So Jason, you're interested or willing to run as president?
You would have at least accepted if you were voted in.
What about a treasurer?
I was going to nominate you, but there's no nomination process.
Well,
You're always into the numbers.
I think we talked about
You are.
The what?
You're always into the numbers, and you are for the sewer board anyway?
Yeah.
I am treasurer of the sewer trustees,
There's
yes.
no conflict there, right? And last night, the sewer trustees reappointed him as superintendent and Eddie for the clerk. So you know what they did already.
And you're willing?
Pardon?
And you're willing?
Yes, sir. Oh, yes. I was waiting for, I didn't want to jump in. I wanted to have
Let's
say
move on with
something.
the ballots there.
All right.
Yes, definitely.
Take one and
Jason.
pass them around. Does everybody have a pen or a pencil?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get a pen, thanks. Can we use one?
You got to color in the black circle.
It can't be erased.
Is it
Number 2 pencil, Bob. Completely black at the box.
And I'm gonna have two left.
Perfect.
We just, oh, wait a minute. I only got one, yeah. We just send that where it goes. All right.
I'll wait and see what everybody votes. I'll throw a couple extra votes my way if I.
Yeah, Mike,
Oh, and yeah, they also did the R.H. Smith. Don't forget that one, with the auditor.
So these are the currents.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Unless you have a write-in.
I don't vote. I'm not worried about what people see in my ballots.
You're supposed to sign this somewhere?
No.
No one cares.
Secret.
All right.
So.
Secret ballot.
Look at them all, but the majority says, just as you guys were suggesting, it would be Jason president, Bob treasurer, and the three other positions Eddie will be clerk, Mike is superintendent, and RHR Smith is our auditor. So that was a majority vote, and everybody else kept on going with it.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for your support.
May your reign
And
be
Jason
long.
does too. Jason does
Put your
too.
signs down now.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I guess we'll move right ahead then.
Do we need to take a vote on those, or?
I got the votes, yep.
Oh, but
It
those
was
are,
unanimous.
Okay.
Votes.
all right.
So jumping right in, financial report
Okay,
update.
listen, all right, let's do it. First page is your balance sheet, and, just point out that our cash is shown, an increase of about 300,000 for the month. We really haven't spent a lot in capital projects yet, but that's still a good thing. Not a lot, really much has changed from December. We're still early in the year. So that was all I was gonna point out on the balance sheet, unless somebody had a question. Okay, next page is the income statement, and, sales were positive compared to budget for the month. Some of that may have to do with having an extra day, but I think overall it was a strong month. Interest income, we're looking pretty favorable due to our CD interest. And as far as expenses, pretty flat, just timing on a lot of these. Maintenance, that I'm sure will catch up, showing a $10,000 below budget, but that will catch up. So really nothing too crazy there. Unless someone had a specific question, I'll just.
And under the insurances, we
Just one way.
we paid some insurance, so that's why it's a little bit over.
Yeah, I think, that some of that, I think it was a workers' comp bill that came in.
Yeah, I saw that in the bills.
Yeah, so, again, that will probably even out as we
It will.
move through the year. Okay, and then on our stat page, just digging a little deeper into revenues. So versus prior year, we're also at a positive variance in year-to-date, which is good, for both gallons and dollars. Payroll, we have a positive variance again. I suspect some of that will shake out as we bring on more people. And receivables are in line. They don't really fluctuate a whole lot month to month. And again, cash on hand is just, slightly up, which is good, so. Any questions on the stat page?
I just make a comment to the water trustees, the sewer trustees. I think it was a little over a year ago, we had a 9% increase in sewer rates. And there's some capital projects going on that end. So they're gonna be looking for a rate increase, probably next year or 2 years from now. They're just dipping down below their reserve on that nice fancy line. We're way above our reserve. So it's just an FYI. So if they get a rate increase 2 years from now, who knows? Maybe we'll be 3 or 4 years from now, we'll be able to alternate the rate increase.
Something we're gonna have to consider, just with all the costs that have gone up, we've raised
The search tank,
salary increases, everything. When's the last time we had a rate increase?
But we bonded, remember, that's why we get the extra money.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't bond that just to let it.
No, off the top of your head, Mike?
We used to, last rate increase was 2019 on the water. And we used to have, in our cash on hand, we used to fund our capital projects. So we used to carry a lot of money to fund capital work. But when we bonded, we've been chipping away at that money that we used to keep in a cash reserve for capital work, and that's why we've stayed so healthy. I will say, we have a lot of capital work planned for this year. Our cash on hand is gonna drop. I'm gonna be looking for a vote in the meeting here to spend a lot of money to start. I mean, construction's starting now. It's early season. We've got a lot of work to keep up with everything that's going on around here. So we're gonna be spending some money. And we're gonna just have to evaluate that as we go through the year, how our cash stays. I think we're good for 2024. I would think we might wanna be looking at the end of 2025 to maybe institute some sort of small incremental increase and, and have to see what rates are at that point if we wanna, bond again or what we wanna do for capital.
That'd be like, right now, so we're ballpark 4 years since
4 years.
2019.
Yep.
We should be probably looking at a rate increase right soon, very
Yep.
soon. Not a big one. In other words, if we can do it more incrementally, and rather than allow, all of a sudden say, oh boy, we need all this for construction, do a small one
Right.
coming up pretty soon, this year. I don't know, leave it up to you, this year and then another small one later. Better than throwing something out there, we want 11% or something, and
Yeah, we don't
or
want to.
12 or 15 or.
Right.
At 17, I think.
So
or
are you
19.
guys aware there's a new statute that came on recently that you can get a 1.5% increase on your prior year revenues? And it basically takes just 30 days to implement. There's no, you don't have to have a public hearing or, it's pretty quick
That's
and
once a year?
easy. You can do it every 11 months,
You can do it for like a maximum of 3 years continuously, I think.
something like that,
Yeah, so you could theoretically do it every year for 3 years and just implement
But
a
you
small
could do it maybe
1.5%.
this year, just to get you through until you're ready to do a big rate case, because those take, what, like almost a year to get through.
And we also talked about seeing what the other major water districts in the state of Maine are doing. Maybe we'll have that information next meeting to see what their rates are, how we compare.
What do you think of a suggestion, Mike?
No, I think we're in really good shape. Look at our cash on hand. I don't think we need to necessarily do a rate increase now. I like what you're saying though. I think you get through this season, you're gonna have plenty of cash to get through this year. And I think we look at this, we can see what other districts are at, and I think definitely you ought to consider at least the 1.5% for next year and see how that carries us. If that keeps our cash on hand healthy where it needs to be and we can fund another $1.5 million worth of capital work next year, then great. If we need to do larger of an increase for 2026, we'll have to play that out. But
So we'll do that like November this year, or wait till January, February of 2025?
yeah, I would say by, October, September, October, you're gonna see where your cash is really gonna be towards the end of summer. And you can start projecting, cash in the next 5 to 10 years and what you need to do to stay at this cash level.
It makes sense, that makes sense.
And what I want to do, and I told Mike I want to do it for sewer, now that we're almost through year end, we're still going through the audit, but set up a cash projection
Good,
month
yeah.
to month, so, because you have all those bond payments that hit in the fall, with the construction, and we can factor in a rate increase, or, so I can build a little model that we can look at and say, give some kind of guideline as to when we think we might need to put in more rates.
Could you also give me the copy of that statute so I can? read
Yeah,
it?
is 60, what is it, 60? I always forget if it's 6104 or 6401.
No limit on the decrease though, just the,
Yeah.
imagine that having
Like
a
one
water
before,
rate.
and then it's,
Other districts are doing
It'd be
it.
famous
like
if we
6104 is the
Section
normal
B,
rate
Ahead of, we're more,
Yes,
we've been more
and
aggressive
and
on
then
that,
section B
or
is the new one.
we fall right in
Just
line
the
with
one.
others, and we were
Is
just
that the
catching up, because I know for a long time,
Yeah,
it was
just-
cash.
Like a few
Without
utilities
wanting
that
to
started
do it
doing
now
it,
that
because
we're-
you've been out there like
the
3 or
rates
4
were
months.
favorable.
You
have a bond cap?
90 days, yeah.
Like a municipality.
Okay, thank you.
So we should know what, I was asking Mike if we have a bond cap like the city does, right? Because what you want to know is, for the bonds that you have outstanding, what percentage of your cap is that?
And it's basically our bond rating, and that's, right now, we're really good because for the last decade, we've been cash. And we haven't been bonding but for big projects. Other than, the last few years, there haven't been a lot of, we bonded for the Allen, we bonded for the infrastructure work, and then before that, you might go back to the UV plant for the last big bond. So,
You had a couple just dropped off, just got paid off
Yeah.
too, so that helps.
it does help.
also, I think of I'm glad I went to that meeting up in Lubbock. We're gonna need to be thinking about if they wanna dredge the basin, to.
We're gonna talk about that. Yep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be, if that or the dosing stations are gonna be a lot of money. And so they might, Lubbock's gonna need more money, we're gonna be sending them more money. Us in Lewiston.
So that's it with our financial report. Anything else, we can move on to ratify payment of bills.
So moved. I read it. Motion to ratify the payment of bills.
Oh, yeah, seconded, yeah, I like to do
Motion
that.
and a second, any
You
discussion?
normally do that.
Discussion.
I normally do it,
Never
yes.
hesitate.
I'm a new guy, so I don't want to annoy anybody by asking questions, but I've been on boards before, and I don't see this in the bylaws. I don't know I don't know what my duties are here. And so like usually it's the treasurer and the president, sorry. But usually that's the treasurer and the president's job, and I don't understand this.
Quote job,
Yeah, it's in the bylaws
to do exactly what?
to review the bills. ratify
Well,
the
I
bills.
normally do suggest that, but someone beat me to it, that's all.
So a little history, we used to do exactly that, Dennis. We used to go over the bills and we used to talk about it for 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then I don't know if it was Mary.
I think what Dennis is saying is that ratifying the payment of bills is not normally on the agenda
Something we don't
and
have
voted
to-
on by the board. It's something that's done outside of the meeting by the president and the treasurer.
So
Just
when did
remove
it
it.
get,
Also, I don't.
and I don't remember, because I think this is my 5th year, and I don't remember when it became that way. It must have been
I'm
before.
going on, this will be my 11th year, and this is just the way it's been since I've been here. I don't,
That's a great question.
Jeff asked the same question, like, why do you go through that?
Yeah, yeah,
And the funny thing is, you're approving this, we've already paid this. So what happens if we disapprove? They've already cashed the check.
This
It's
method,
in the bylaws saying
I don't see this in the,
Doesn't say
Dennis
anything
must have
about-
read the thing and seen the same thing I asked Mike about this a while ago. This is very similar, what's going on with this ratification is very similar to a non-charter city that has select people and they have to pass a warrant because there's no actual governmental structure or organizational structure to pass their bills. So typically, like in Auburn or any chartered city or anybody that has a town council that has a city administrator or a city manager, the elected officials, which would be analogous to the Board of Trustees, never even look at this stuff. I mean, they can if they want to, but basically they empower the city manager, and what they're looking at is what we just did in the financial report, is comparing the performance of the organization against the budget. There's nothing that says you can't do this, but the question I said to Mike is, okay, I see charges on here for $2.37. What the hell does the Board of Trustees care about, truck 39 had to get an inspection sticker?
Well, the treasurer is signing anything that's over a certain amount, is that correct? So.
Yes, yeah,
so-
exactly. So a lot of
If
organizations.
the treasurer needs to raise an issue, I think that would be the appropriate, personally. I don't know if do you have any feelings about it? One way or the other?
I've always wondered myself, it's kind of,
Everyone's like,
to
why do you do
my
this?
point, it's always, well, what happens if you didn't vote on it? We've already paid it, they've already cashed it.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I've always thought that's kind of awkward, that it's kind of backwards.
Yeah.
Right, and like in a municipal warrant situation, they haven't paid them. No checks get cut until their warrant for paying the bills is ratified. So, a lot of organizations will have some type of a bylaw or rule that says the board has to look at these if it's over a certain amount of money, whatever it is, $10,000. Depends on how the size of the organization, like private sector, depending on the size of the business, it might be $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million before the equivalent of even of Mike is even bothering to look at this stuff. But in a smaller organization like this, you might say if it's over $10,000 or $25,000, the board should see it. But Mike's point, and this is what Mike told me at the time, we already paid him anyway, so.
Yeah, I guess my question, the luxury of asking stupid questions goes to new people, you know.
No, those are good,
But,
that's like what we need, is
But
absolutely.
I've been on a few boards, and it was, so I saw that, and I tried to figure out what my responsibility was by going to the bylaws, and I couldn't find that. I did find connections between the treasurer and the president, but not the other members of the board, and I haven't been involved in that, so that's why I asked the question.
So whatever we decide, we'll have to bring it up with sewer as well. We should try to mirror, right, as a district?
Sewer does that as well.
Yeah.
Sewer does this as well, ratify payment of bill.
I mean, if it's not in our bylaws and we have directional consensus that we can move on from the process, I would think, would you agree, Bob? If it's not in our bylaws, we have directional consensus that we could move on from the process and have a treasurer's report if needed, or?
Yeah, you have a financial report, but Dan has a good point here, right, which is it kind of joined at the hip. If this group thinks that we should forego that unless it's above a certain amount or something, then who's on that, Dennis and Dan? And
Bob and I are.
Yeah, Dennis, you're on it now.
Yeah, I missed
Oh, that's right.
So that you guys could talk to them and see if everybody's like-minded.
Sure, they'll be
Yeah,
just,
tell them we're gonna drop
just as
it
happy
off
to
our-
drop it off the agenda.
Yeah, either that or write it
You
in
know,
the bylaws, one,
We've
you know.
we've been working, one thing, when I started as superintendent, one of the first things I said is, I want a purchasing policy. We don't have a purchasing policy currently, something that I want. We've actually got it very close. I'm wondering if this could kind of wrap in there and say, with these certain amounts, when do you go to the treasurer? When is it outside of the purview of, and then maybe that settles it. Maybe this is something that we just bounce off the treasurer, and then if it hits another threshold, then maybe it goes to the full board. Kind of wrap that into the purchasing policy. But
Sounds like, sounds like you should probably set a threshold, set a dollar amount, so anything over
Yeah, I
X
think
amount of
so.
dollars.
And
Will,
I mean, the idea that it's, Mike has to go to the treasurer over a certain amount, so check and balance. If it's bigger, you gotta get permission from the board. A lot of these boards, it is on the purchasing side, because if the board of trustees, like, you know, we voted on the vacuum truck last time. When the bills come in, we're contractually obligated to pay them already, right? We've approved it up front.
So we don't have in the bylaws, my copy anyway doesn't specify the amount that the treasurer shall countersign all checks for the payment of money. So it just says,
Well, I
they
think the
countersign,
treasurer
is there a
should have
number
to
that
counter.
you?
I think your auditor's gonna tell you that you have to have two people involved in that, so countersigning the check is fine. It's really more, that's after somebody's decided to buy it, so I think the question would be, what would the board want to give Mike authority along this purchasing lines? You can do this, at some level, it's gonna change, the method's gonna change from you can just go buy it to maybe you gotta get 3 quotes. If it's bigger, maybe you gotta go out to bid. And then there might be some threshold that says, okay, if we're doing a purchase above a certain amount, then the board of trustees needs to approve that.
So do we want to bounce it off sewer and then have an agenda item to organize our thoughts and come back to it?
Sure.
Or do we? Okay.
I think so.
That's a good idea, James.
See what sewer has for feedback, and then maybe Mike, you can.
Yeah, and if Dennis has been looking at the charter and stuff, I mean, are you interested in leading that? I mean, like a suggestion of how we should roll with it?
You mean developing a policy?
Yeah.
I can draft something.
That would
well,
be
let me show you what we already have drafted.
You may.
We put a lot of work into it. It's everything you just said. We got
Yeah,
that.
that's all standard
We got it.
version.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
When was that drafted? Just
We've been
out of
working on it for quite a while.
So it's been around?
With the turnover in
Yeah.
when Katie was on as finance director, that was one of the charges I gave her. I said, I want a purchasing policy. Can you work on this? And then she was working on it. And then when she had left, our new customer service manager was like, hey, I got this drafted out. I want to finish this. Can you continue working on this? And he's really gotten it to where I feel like I'm pretty happy with it right now. I was going to put it on the agenda and get it in front of the board just to let you guys know what we're up to and get your blessing on it. But all right, we'll roll this into it. And
So step one, talk to sewer,
Yeah.
but step two, if you want to volunteer to work with Mike on that, That'd be great. I think that would be a good.
That's fine, I'm happy to look
come
at
back.
it. Yeah, look at it, let's look at it first.
Come back to us with an agenda item.
You guys can coordinate times if you can.
To review it?
To-
Or-
Right, exactly.
Recommendation
Yeah.
maybe, or?
I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
do
maybe
that.
put it on the agenda for both the water and sewer
Yep.
for next time, so they can review it, and then that would be a way of introducing it to the sewer trustees as well.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, thanks.
So for today, we have a motion and a second and a lot of discussion about other stuff.
Yeah, so this discussion of the bills, I have just 5 questions on the 21 pages, and Mike answered them yesterday.
Okay, so we still need to close out the
Until
vote,
the
motion
ball-
and a
until
second.
the-
Let's,
So it's
so
James.
we'll, all in favor of the
Yep.
ratifying payment of bills for this week and,
You can keep the lights on.
okay, all right, got it this time. Okay,
Mr. President, that's not the end of the stupid questions. So.
keep it coming, please. Okay, so public comment is next. We have a member of the public who wishes to speak.
I'll just simply say that I anticipate from what Mike and others have said earlier that you may go into executive session to discuss what may be an 8-year problem. I would just simply point out that you have a 6-year statute of limitations, which might be advantageous.
Therein lies the problem, I guess, but yes.
Well, you can shorten the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead to the activity report. Thank you.
All right, on the monthly activity report under games, we had 2 breaks, circumferential breaks on 6-inch cast iron, that broke in East Bates, otherwise relatively quiet. Gates, we've been really ramping up on our efforts to get ahead of a lot of this capital work that we had ahead of us. As you can see, we went out there locating all of our gates that fall within the scopes of the projects, collected GPS points, factored out the gates to make sure that they're accessible in the event that we need to access these and shut these down. And while doing so, assess whether what position the gate's in. Is it operable? Is it missing a nut? Is the valve box canted and it needs to be reset? So this is all actionable information that goes beyond just the work that we're doing this year. So now we can account for valves that may operate, valves that may be missing nuts, and then we can come up with a strategy to fix that based off the criticality of that asset. Hydrants, still in the winter season, although it's been very mild winter for us. But there's been a lot of hydrant maintenance still going on, and as you can see, there's been a handful of structure fires that we had to go pump out and make sure that the hydrants would not freeze. And then there's been a handful of, or a couple hydrants that were hit by vehicles, 89 Union Street, and I put 20 Spring Street, but it's 95 Spring Street. This is the hydrant.
The
by
Hannaford, again.
So I'm happy to say, Bob, again, that's right. In my 10 months, I've never seen a hydrant struck this much before. But I'm happy to say, in conjunction with Adam Stevens, the city, coordinated, we are offsetting that hydrant. It's gonna be offset about 5 feet over and moved about 5 feet back. So it'll be out of that travel lane as people exit Hannaford. So hopefully we don't have to spend as much time over there.
Of course, it is out of the travel lane right now, but they just decided
It's right on the
add a half a lane.
Yeah.
So isn't the Walmart pole.
Yeah, I know,
Oh.
that's what I was thinking
But they
too.
still run that.
Right, yeah, and they even changed colors, I heard, so,
Like a stop sign on it.
yeah.
Our hydrant does not have a Facebook page, by the way.
That's right, yeah, right.
Yes, yes. And, moving it will prevent it from having a Facebook page. And then new services, we have 2 new services.
Oh, the new services, before you go by on it?
Yep.
The second one, is that Semino, is that pronounced Semino Way?
Seminole.
Semino Way.
Yep.
I just wondered, the storm water building at Palm Spring, can you qualify, what happened there? I mean, that storm, I haven't seen the word stormwater building come up someplace.
Yeah, I guess I would defer to Mike on this. This
So-
was what was under the notes.
The Poland Spring bottling plant, they're very conscious of their impact on the environment. So all the stormwater that's captured around the bottling plant gets piped and it's gravity fed down to this building. The stormwater gets treated, and then it gets pumped back up to the facility and then dispersed back into the ground around the facility. And this building, they got a water service because there's an eye wash station in there. So there's a bathroom and an eye wash. So that's why they have a water service. It really, but that's what it's treating the stormwater around the facility.
Neat, thank you.
Yep.
Then under services,
Bottling it, yeah. Somebody treated it, let's bottle it.
A new seasonal beverage. yeah.
we had a handful of services that we had to maintain, and then,
Oh, are you done with services yet? I got a question.
go ahead.
The last one, Shepley Street.
Yep.
Leak on water service, it's 24 hours, that's like 3 men there for an 8-hour day. I'm just wondering, our responsibility for water, does our responsibility, the district's responsibility for maintaining this pipe, does it end at the meter? Or does it end toward the street more?
It ends, so our responsibility is from the main to the curb. And at that curb, we have, some people refer to it as the curb stop, service valve. That's the portion that we own as a utility. Everything beyond that, outside of the meter, is on the homeowner. So that's private. The meter is ours, and then again, we own from the main to the property line where a curb stop, service valve, depending on who you are for, what part of the country you're in, that's what you'd refer to it as. So that's our responsibility.
Thank you.
And this leak here, while it does say on a service, we were called out there for low pressure. When we got out there to investigate, we then found that the leak was on our portion. The leak was on our portion.
It was between the
Yep.
main and the curb.
Exactly. Yep.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. Nothing really to note on meter installations, station checks. Our maintenance operator's doing a really good job checking on our stations, making sure that we're getting out there on a weekly basis. Again, the intent of this is for us to, know what we have, know the condition of the assets, and know that if there's a looming problem, we catch it before it becomes an emergency. Mike and I, we developed Survey 123, so as they're going out doing this, they pull up their iPad or their phone, they go right down through the checklist. So not only are they just doing station checks, but there's also information in there beyond just station checks that we can use for planning and strategizing, such as in emergency situations. We have a storm coming, we can go on there, we can see what we have for fuel levels at all our generators and when it was last checked, so that we can decide whether if we need to call somebody to refuel or if we're gonna be okay based on the storm.
Do we have any security cameras at Hardscrabble or Garfield Reservoir?
No.
Two-part question. We don't have any, is there any foreseen need or any future foreseen need for it that we need to look at, or am I off base?
I think it would be important to, if the problem is there's not a lot of power and resources there, to install something like that. But I could see someday through some sort of security grant, us having that at those facilities. I could see that.
If something did happen there, something, it was kind of an intrusion that could cause a lot of trouble, then looking back would say, boy, we could have got a security camera in there a few years ago, and that might have helped.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
The loss at Goff Hill is people in pickup trucks coming in there occasionally and taking materials and shoveling them in the back, because I can see it from my house.
Wow.
So, more when the leaves are off. I can't see it as well in the summer, but you rarely see anybody in there, other than, I see the district employees coming in there, but, I've lived there for 18 years, and 2-3 times a year I see people shoving materials, but I've never seen anybody like loading pipe or hydrants or metal or anything like
Is
that.
that
Non-water district
Is that
truck.
one fenced and locked like Hardscrabble is?
It's supposed to be. It
It's
is
fenced, but it's almost never locked.
No.
Because
Okay.
I'll walk my dog around there once in a while, and the gate's almost always open.
There might be a sign right next to the time clock.
It says lock the gate.
And I might have taped it there about a year ago. as a reminder.
Shouldn't that gates for both of them, shouldn't they be locked all the time except when
Hardscrabble
they're there?
is-
Hard Scrabble is always locked, it's not a question. The problem with Goff Hill is nobody knows if they're the last one there for the day, and I get that, but I tell the crews, I don't care, whoever's on call before you leave the day, go make sure it's locked. Because, I mean, we're usually in and out of there in dump trucks and equipment, and you don't know, am I gonna be the last one, well, I gotta leave it open for the next guy, because I've even talked about getting an automatic gate up there or something, but it's not a perfect thing, and it does not get locked all the time.
Yeah, it's not, I don't think you have a real problem there at this point.
Is it
Once
an
we
entry
get-
gate, or is it once you get in, so, because
There's
at
a there's a
Hardscrabble,
perimeter, there's both.
Hardscrabble is an entry gate, and then you go way up the hill, and then
There's
there's
a fence gate.
big
The
fence.
fence
right?
gate
Barbed wire
at
and
Goff
everything.
Hill's way different, because in the Goff Hill fence around the reservoirs, we have stockpiles of gravel and hot top and patch, and all of our hydrants and parts and pieces are up there.
Pipes.
We keep equipment, we keep
So
plows,
it's a more
we keep,
active site.
it's very active compared to Hardscrabble. Hardscrabble, one guy a week. This is 50 guys a day.
And it's, the inside gate that's around the reservoir is always locked.
Yeah.
It's the one into the maintenance yard that's
Yeah.
not always locked.
So theft hasn't become an issue so far.
Apparently, we're losing some gravel.
Very,
Yeah.
but it's
It's pretty,
It's not a
it's not
lot,
been an
it's
issue, Bob.
sporadic.
It's never been an issue.
Okay, and water quality calls, we just had one for cloudy murky water that was due to the use of a hydrant. And then as far as the laboratory, everything looks normal there. And then you can see the number of patrols on Lake Auburn as well, which is consistent with annual data. Weather's been extremely warm. You can see February, we had 1.7 inches of snowfall. Total precipitation of, just under a half an inch, when normal for this time of year is 3 inches for precipitation. And then dig safes, everything is normal there. You'll see the numbers start ramping up as construction season starts inching closer. And with Mother Nature, it might become a little bit closer than we expected this year. And then the duty foreman calls are normal. I will say under other activities, we did send the water crew water distribution system certification training. Mike and I are both happy to report that since then, we have had one operator sit for his exam, and he is now a certified water operator. As well, another item is we do have ATI analyzer. That's a chlorine analyzer that we installed over at Hardscrabble. So now that gives us right from the computer here, instead of having someone go out and sample the water and test that for chlorine, we can see what we have for chlorine residuals there. So again, that's just more information that we can make informed decisions on whether if we want to turn the tank over, or if we think it's going to be, it's fine, it's not needed at this point. And then the project update, it's more or less what I talked about as far as our preliminary work. And then the last piece of that is approval of capital spending for the following list of projects. Marion 4th Street's seeking approval for $710,000. That's in conjunction with the city that did go out to bid yesterday. And what we're doing is we want to make sure that we're ahead of this. We want to make sure that there's no bottleneck, and we want to make sure there's no issues with lead time for securing procuring parts. LCRR, we are entering into contract with a contractor in Amos to go out and do spot inspections for some of these service lines that may indicate that they may be lead material. Chestnut Street, that's for the new PAL Center. We weren't it wasn't on our radar until middle to late last year. this is in conjunction with the city. In order for them to rebuild that facility, would have to offset our main in the right of way. So that's kind of how that landed on our radar. And with that, looking at that project, that's 8-inch cast from 1936, I believe. So for them to do a reconstruction of that area, have that facility, we would hate to leave, 8-inch cast iron in there only for it to potentially, leak and maybe destroy some of the beautiful work that they did. And then tank cleaning, went out and received 3 quotes from firms that specialize in tank cleaning and inspection. To my knowledge, I don't know if they've ever been inspected before from a firm, but these are entities that are certified in doing this, so that they can go in there, they can look at the condition and give us recommendations and also quotes for those recommendations. Dennis?
Why does the water temperature matter? It was just kind of a...
Why does the water temperature matter? I'm sorry, where did the temperature come from?
It says before water temperature is warm in the system.
Oh, yeah, so water temperature, so that kind of correlates with water quality and our disinfectant. So the warmer the temperatures that you get, the less detention time you'll have for your chlorine residuals out in the system. And that's why we want to stay ahead of this. Typically, when summer months start, usually around May, that's when you really want to be on top of monitoring your water quality in the distribution system. Once you get about 15 degrees C, that's when things really start dropping off. And there you have to increase your disinfectant at the treatment plant so it lasts longer out in the distribution system.
Thanks.
What was I? Yeah, so tank cleaner, we did receive 3 quotes for that. They are potentially going to be here next week. I think Mike reached out in advance to inform the board of this. The next line item here is Dunn Street main replacement. This is to tie in the 2-inch HDP that we directionally bored last year between 4th and 5th Street. Clay valve maintenance. Again, really want to identify what are the critical pieces in our distribution system, and we need to know what condition they are in, and we need to make sure that they're properly being maintained. Without these clay valves, they're pressure reducing valves. There's 3 of them, and what that does is that separates the high pressure system from the low pressure system. Without those, we'd potentially be damaging appliances in people's homes. So that's why it's important for us to maintain these pressure reducing valves and the PRVs that they have in them, so that we can safely keep that separation between the 2 systems, as well as altitude valve at Goff Hill. MDOT projects. DOT is going to be essentially tearing up every thoroughfare in the city, and we haven't received what their bids are, but we were able to be a bid alternate on their contract for their contractor to do gate valves and manhole adjustments for us. A lot of this work is going to be in the busiest streets that we have, and that work's going to be done at night, and the impact to operations for our entity here to do that while maintaining day-to-day operations would be a real struggle. That's my 2 cents on the capital projects.
So for the lead service line inventory item of 300,000, is this related to our compliance with the
pending, the lead and copper rule regulation that's coming October 16th.
Is that what we discussed? I forget where we left that. We were talking about external funding to help us offset some of the costs because it's kind of a requirement.
So let me give a little bit more of an update on that one. So yes, you're right. So LCRR, lead and copper rule revision, we have to submit an inventory of all our service lines. At this time, we have 5,000 service lines, and we don't know what the material type is on the homeowner side. We have about 35 to 40 that our records indicate the services are lead. We have a number, I think it was like around 100 that are indicating galvanized. Galvanized is another one that may be considered lead, depending on how this rule breaks. Even the rule makers don't know in the end, come October, how they're gonna classify some of these. Our initial plan is we're attacking the lead. We're actually starting April 1st. We're going to be going out and we're going to be digging all of those lead services to verify, is it lead or is it copper? What is it? Were our records just wrong? If they're lead, we're going to be immediately getting prices to replace the service. If we find lead, we're going to have to provide filters for these residents because they have lead services, whether it's on us or it's on them. So all of these things, we need this funding. I'm actually meeting with Amy LaChance, the Commissioner of the Drinking Water Program, April 10th. I'm going to be going up to Augusta. I'm going to meet with her. I'm going to show her what we found in our inventory so far, what our work plan is, and what we have for funding and what else is available. There's a lot of money available. We may be able to apply for funding for all the service line replacements if we do find lead. We may be able to get a whole bunch more grant money. I'm hoping to get that outlined to me when I go up there. Another big thing that's going to be a big expense is the PR work on this. I do have an RFP put together for public relations work. We're working right now on a new web page on our website that's going to be educational, all about this LCRR, lead and copper rule. I'm actually going to be meeting with our customer service manager, myself, and the city's PR officer, Liz Allen. We're going to be meeting hopefully early next week to talk about all this information so they can help us get this out to the public. Because this is going to be huge. We need to get into 5,000 homes. We're going to be asking residents to conduct self-surveys. We're working on a GIS layer that will be able to provide a QR code on a letter. So if you get this letter at home, you can scan the QR code, walk down in your basement, fill out the survey, hit submit, boom, I get the information. Take a picture, submit, have people self-report what's going on, or schedule an appointment with the district, we'll come do the inspection. So it's a lot of work, but this is what we have for funds designated for this. We're gonna get this money as far as we can with this, and then hopefully we can get some more assistance from the state. But it's a big project.
The service line replacements are how far? Up to?
Every service is different. Right now, the district only owns.
But is it up to our?
If it's lead, no, it goes all the way to the house.
If it's lead, we have to
Even
take
if-
the other end.
Even if we don't own it.
Yeah, where in the house does it start?
Right, we to the meter.
Okay.
Yep. So just so everybody's, I know we got some new board members. Every year when we vote on our budget in December, we approved a dollar value in the capital projects, but the trustees do not approve the individual projects. All of these projects that Matt listed are in our budget, and the total budget number was approved. But what we're looking for tonight is the actual authorizations for yes for fourth, yes for LCR, yes for these. That's what we're looking for tonight, to get that approval on each of these. So,
Jason, I can make a motion.
Yeah.
Want
we have
further
a
discussion?
A motion to
approve capital spending on the 7 projects listed in the provided trustee memo totaling $1,310,600.
Second.
Motion with a second. Further discussion? Did you have some comment?
No, just,
My concern, just asking a question about that, is if we're getting ahead of the funding, potential external funding by committing this now. Not to say drag our feet or anything, but is there any reason to look at the big picture and say, what are other districts doing to get external funding? Is everybody going as aggressively as this? Like, I don't know how this 300,000 fits in the big picture of what our total estimate was, but
good question.
that was my thought.
We're behind the 8 ball. I'll be honest. Last year with the transitions, we're way behind. So yes.
But what's the final thing in October? Hasn't been approved?
No, we have to submit our inventory October. The
Okay.
problem will come if we submit an inventory with 5,000 unknowns. An unknown is considered lead, which you're not in trouble per se if you submit this inventory and you just tell them what you have. The problem comes in the next incremental phase, which is lead and copper rule improvements. You will then be mandated to all these unknowns that you don't know. You are now mandated to do this. You may be mandated to revise your sampling plan. Right now we take X amount of lead and copper samples of our system. You will be then, well, you've got 3,000 unknowns, you now need to sample a higher percentage, and they have to be of these, and you may have to do a treatment technique change up at the treatment plant saying, well, you've got all of these leads, you need to now change that, and that's where the big money then starts coming into, oh boy. You know, and I'll tell you, lead and copper sampling is the most difficult sampling possible, because we as employees of the district, we can't collect the sample. We're reliant on the homeowner. We give them the information and we give them the bottles, and they need to collect the sample. And getting people to do that is incredibly difficult, especially where the rule specifies that I can't go to any one of your 4 houses. I got to get it from your house because your house was built on this date, or I go to your house because your house is service says lead. I need to service there because of this new rule. So it's just very difficult to force your way into homes and to force them that you need to take the sample. It's not easy. But anyways, no, I don't think this is jumping the gun. I don't think I think we're behind on this, and we got to get caught up. I'm hoping there's going to be some additional funding we're going to be able to get. There's no guarantee there is. We did get funding for a Vector truck for this work. Unfortunately, because of the delay in the main bond bank, we're not getting that truck till August. So I did find that out since the last meeting. Part of this money, we're actually contracting with an outfit for them to bring their Vector truck up to hydro excavate, because our truck's not coming till August. So
That's what I was gonna ask you, when you mentioned about they're gonna start digging to check the pipes, I'm thinking, well, we don't have a vac truck up, we don't have the equipment to do it.
We're gonna use our sewer truck for the first week. We're gonna use the sewer truck for the first week, but the second week, the sewer truck needs to clean sewers.
Yeah, exactly.
So the second week, we're gonna use a company called Badger. They basically provide an operator and a truck. And it's expensive, but we don't have a lot of options.
So we're out of time, that's the reason that we have to go that route instead of wait.
Not necessarily that we're out of time, is we're behind the 8 ball, and we've got to get as much work as we can before October done now. If we wait and then find out we're not getting any funding till August, September, we're just not going to be able to get this work done. We need to run this 300,000 as far as we can get with it, and that's what it's going to be.
Okay, any other
We don't have much of a choice.
comments?
How many crew would be needed with the Vector truck and the person running it? How many of our people would
One.
need with them?
One.
Just one, good.
So we have motion
on
and
the
a second.
table in a second. Just have to vote.
All right, let's have a vote. All in favor?
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'm gonna make a motion, so thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Brenda, take care.
Yeah, see you next time.
Next on our list is new business inventory value-added services.
All right, I know we're running along on time. Years ago, the district was a value-added service customer of EJP. We had actually been a VAS customer for over 20 years. We were having some issues with our inventory at that time. In addition to being a VAS customer, we also had consignment inventory. So the inventory that's in our storage barn was actually owned by EJP. And as we took the inventory out of stock, they replenished it and billed us. We started having some issues with, they were sending us bills and we were saying, well, we didn't use that. Where did these parts go? We wound up canceling the VAS contract, we wound up buying our inventory, and we've been in this process of self-managing our inventory ever since then. I will say this has not gone perfectly. It's been a struggle. As it turns out, 90% of the problems that we were having, actually 95, were our own staff just not being accountable for when they're taking parts out of the barn. When you're putting it into the ground, charge it to that job, you've got to account for the parts. That's been the biggest problem. About a year ago, a little more than that now, a year and a half ago, the guy that was managing our inventory just threw his hands up. I can't do this anymore, because he's got to account for where did the $200,000 worth of parts go, and he got no slips from any employees saying where they used it. And we had all these jobs going on. He's like, I can't do this, I can't manage this, Mike. So I called EJP up, I said, come on down here and give me your best sales pitch, I need help. And they came down here and said, wait, we don't want to get involved in what you guys got going on, because if you're not accountable, then it's just gonna fall apart when we get here. So that was kinda eye-opening. We did some training, we did some holding people accountable, we've had some staff changes. It has improved dramatically, where we're doing a much better job accounting for our parts. Matt has done a lot of things to make it more efficient, to document these work orders and all the projects that we do. The guys are doing a tremendous job accounting for that. I think it's now time to get back to this service. There's a lot of benefit to the district. I think in the end it's a net positive return to us. They hold pricing, there's a return policy, there's emergency services that's covered, there's training that's covered. All these things we expend money for now. This is gonna save us money. The sewer board has approved it, and I would like to have the water board also approve this, and I will enter in a contract for 1 year for value-added service.
I made the motion.
I'll second the motion, and now discussion. What about the 3% that you mentioned yesterday?
So
Can you
yes,
elaborate?
so signing the contract, we agree to pay 3% over and above everything that we purchase. If we buy $400,000 in inventory, we're gonna spend $12,000 in service charges for VAS. But we get everything that's on this list. They also have a rebate policy, so basically $12,000 is what you pay, you'll get $5,000 in like a cash rebate at the end of the year. So then you can use those, like they call it VAS bucks. In the past, we've bought leak detection equipment, we've bought thaw machines, we've bought a lot of really good items that we need anyways. So it's in the end, we get that back, we get the training, we get the emergency service, we get a lot of benefit to what that costs. The other really big thing is when you sign the contract, they lock you in the pricing for a year, so you're not the market fluctuations. You also get access to all the other VAS customers in the state. If I need a 6-inch coupling right now,
Yeah, the emergency stuff.
and if EJP doesn't have it in stock, they get on the computer and while you're VAS, so I can look at all my VAS inventory. Scarborough has that fitting. We will get it for you. They'll have it here from Scarborough, no charge to us.
That's awesome.
Whereas before, if you're not in VAS, we don't have it on the shelf. Sorry, I got one in Medford, Mass. We can have it here in 2 days. You know, that's where we're at right now.
What is the cost? Like, you might
It's
say.
3%.
Okay.
Yeah. So last year we spent $440 some odd thousand on parts and pieces. So it would have been $12,000 last year.
That's
And we
a
would have had a
small price to pay for the
$4,500
value
But
that you get.
but the offset to that is that you're gonna decrease costs that you're
Right.
incurring now, because
Absolutely.
you're doing that stuff yourself.
We're paying a certified trainer to come in and do safety training. It comes free with VAS. We're paying for leak detection when we have bad leaking. It comes free with VAS. There's a lot of benefits.
We have access to all the EJP's training that they do at their facility, so if a new technology, new, mechanical on board, if they have a training, we can send our crew over there, and they can get trained free of charge, that's under this umbrella.
Sounds like a deal. Does anybody else have a comment? All right, all in favor of going ahead with this? All right,
Perfect.
unanimous, value-added service, approved. Next is district service territory.
All right. So this was brought to my attention. Actually, Mr. Harmon found this. Looking at our charter defines our service territory. It describes it as I can pull it up here in a minute. So this is actually a copy of the sewer charter, but the water charter is a mirror image. And sorry, the highlighting doesn't look very good on this, but if you read, Old Danville Corner Road, Southerly by this road, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it describes our service territory. What it does not describe is our service lines that go out into the town of Poland. And they go out to Route 26 and over to Cindy's Dockside. Starting in the year 2010, no, that's not it. This is starting in the year 2010, the district entered into an agreement with the town of Poland to extend water and sewer basically out to the bottling plant at Semino Drive, this is Semino Drive right here. This is the bottling plant. Since then, there's been 5 more additional contracts that's extended the water and sewer out 122, Route 26, and most recently all the way up over the hill. And we've never amended our charter. The agreements that we have in place basically say that we have the rights to lay pipe, maintain pipes, but we do not have the full authority of the charter in the service territory. So I'm bringing this to the board's attention. What I'm advising that we do is that we consult with our legal counsel, have them review the agreements that we have in place with, this is the first agreement from 2010. It does reference the charter, whereas the district's charter grants it all powers. Unfortunately, if our charter's territory doesn't describe Poland, those powers don't, that means we can't do eminent domain. It means that we can't create an ordinance or bylaw to protect our facilities or interests. It means whatever powers are granted to us in the charter do not apply out there because this area is not.
We'd have to go to the state.
We'd have to go through legislator to amend the charter.
So two points I would make about this, just one slight correction on what Mike said. Water and sewer territory is not the same.
No.
So in the original charter, they were both the same. And this area that Mike showed you, which is basically across Vickery, out South Main, down Danville, the Poland, Pownell Road, around the border and back up to the river. The Water District does not currently have authority to operate in that area of Auburn. I don't remember the year now, but in the fairly recent past, like in the last 30 years, sewer was changed, and I'm pretty sure it was when sewer was extended to Carrier Court, because it's on the other side of Vickery. So there would be 2 points I would make about this. One, in looking at this, it wasn't clear to me if there's some other state authority, I couldn't find anything in the legislation that said, you know, when DEP is giving you a service district for sewer, or PUC is giving you a service district for water, if that supersedes the charter. It doesn't appear it does, but that's the question we need to ask the attorneys to verify if this is truly a problem. If this is a problem, this is very easily corrected. I'm happy to work on this through the legislative part. I think that if we have to go to the legislature, the board should consider at the same time expanding the service area for water to include all of Auburn, so it aligns with what the sewer district already is doing. You know, and on the sewer side, it would basically just be getting authority of Poland. That's a little tricky for both water and sewer, because you're not going to be able to say Poland, because the Mechanic Falls folks do part of Poland, but we can work through that later. But it's probably going to be something that gives you authority to operate in Poland by mutual agreement with the town of Poland. So that's where we're at. And I guess I certainly think that we should ask the attorney just to verify this. We won't need the attorney to do anything after that. All the we got legislative elections coming up, but we'll get a legislator once the election's over. The revisor's office will write this stuff, right? We don't need to pay an attorney to write the bill, right? We'll grab a legislator, we'll tell them what we'll just give them a plain English, what we want to do. They'll go to the revisor's office, they'll get the thing written. These types of things that go in the PNSL, they're non-controversial, it's easy to.
So what kind of service area would you be looking for? Like 30 feet beyond each side of the
No.
line,
I
or
think
the whole area?
Well, I think it's just a geographical boundary. So the change
Basically
in
the
Auburn
shading
would
there.
just be to Auburn.
Yeah.
What you would probably want to
I'm talking
say
about for Poland.
Yeah, for Poland, I think you would just want to say is that you would be authorized to operate within the town of Poland by agreement of the town, right? So you're not defining any particular area other than wherever the town of Poland says it's okay for you to operate. That would give you the most flexibility.
Yeah.
In case tomorrow they come in and
Right,
say,
if
hey,
you wanted
can
to
you
change
extend this
something,
thing out
then-
Carpenter Road?
Right, you'd have to go and get a.
Right, yeah. You only want to do that once.
So you can ask Hodgins, you can ask the attorney,
I've already primed him on it.
Okay,
The sewer board approved doing this. I just, want the water board to approve that as well. We'll bounce it off him, see what he has to say, what loopholes are there, what would he recommend, and then, like Jeff said, we can run with it from there.
so for this, if we have directional approval, we don't need to vote for this, we can,
Oh,
Unless
absolutely,
anybody
absolutely,
objects.
depending on what comes back,
Right.
it'll come back to the
but
board.
to go to the attorney,
Yeah.
form, okay. Go, yeah, I would say, unless anybody else has a quick comment about it, I'd say just,
Go for
that's directional,
All right,
to go ahead.
perfect.
And then you'll come back to us, another agenda item?
I
or
will
just
come
an
back
update
next
to-
month and update on service territory and let you know what the attorney recommends and what we have for maybe work to do.
Also, I think the website copy of our charter might be, this is 65. I don't know if that's the most recent update. Probably not. So can we check that to see if...
It's not.
Okay.
Well, let me put it this way. I've talked to Mike about this. Everybody's really busy, but we'll work on this. So the issue is the things that are on your website aren't enacted law, right? So the charter that's on the website is something that somebody typed up. It's probably the exact same thing, but if someone looks at it, that knows what these documents look like, they can
It's
go,
not
this
in
is-
the books as law.
Right,
like
and
this.
the amendment is just a Senate paper without going through all the legislative process. All that was used is for the President of the Senate to refer it to committee. So there's a bit of work to do there, but anyone who probably goes to look for that today will do what I did and go, oh, okay, and they'll just go look it up in the legislative record. We could deal with that at some point,
Yeah.
but it's not like anything that needs to be, something that's a high priority item.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is paving bid.
Just to be kind of an FYI, every 2 years we go out to bid for all our paving services. We've been doing this with the city of Auburn. Basically all the quantities that they have in a given year and the quantities that we have, we lump them together, we put it out to bid. We did only have one bidder this year, which is kind of unfortunate, so it doesn't give you a lot of options. And as we could guess, there was an increase over the last 2 years' bid. If you factor in what we paid last year with the increase, it's going to, up our paving by about $12,000. That's for water and sewer. So it's not a huge increase. I do think the numbers that Matt and I have worked on to put together for the budgets for the different projects, this will be fine within that. But again, just wanted to give you an update that we did have that bid and we'll be moving forward with Spencer.
Okay. Thank you. Lake Auburn phosphorus loading report.
All right, I had sent you all this information. The Watershed Protection Commission had hired WRI, Water Resource Services, Inc., to conduct a phosphorus, basically analysis of the external loading to Lake Auburn. It was a pretty comprehensive work. They looked at the existing sampling data that we had for Lake Auburn and the tributaries. They went out and they collected specific data. They did surveys to look at streams and the different input areas, and they basically pulled together this really nice report, and they had a presentation last week to the commission. Basically, they're recommending that we reduce the external phosphorus loading by 29% to maintain our kind of status quo and where we need to be. That tells me basically we've got about 30% too much phosphorus, reaching Lake Auburn. That's why, we had the algae boom and the fish kills, and we've had to do alum treatments. The alum treatment was extremely effective. It did, sequester the phosphorus for now, but the natural uptake of the lake will not sustain the amount of phosphorus that's coming in, and work is going to be required, or further treatments is going to be required. If anyone did not get a copy of this report, I think we actually got it onto our website. If it's not on there now, it will be on there soon. The commission has just received this report. As Bob had mentioned, there's a lot of work that's recommended. My take on it right now is probably the first thing that we're going to have to do is either look at a future alum treatment and when would that be. and/or two, look at tributary alum treatments to get us by until we can do some major remediation work. The biggest ticket item that was really talked about was dredging the basin. One thing I learned that I did not know before is the basin, the way it currently sits, is basically producing more phosphorus than is leaving Little Wilson Ponds, per se. So the tributary leaving Little Wilson Pond has a phosphorus level of, let's say, 5, and after it goes through the basin and leaves and heads towards Lake Auburn, it's now at 10. So we're actually increasing the phosphorus level because of the current situation of the basin. It is filled in with organic matter. It's no longer retaining any new phosphorus that's coming into it, and with the amount of organic matter in there and the decomposition, it's actually, producing more phosphorus from the sediments that have built up.
Is it because there's been a lack of activity on the basin? They used to be, I didn't know if that's why it...
Well, it's basically, the basin never is not a natural impoundment, right? Actually, Steve Beal sent some information around. He had done some research on this back, 100 years ago? The first rock wall was built to form an impoundment so that somebody could have a sawmill.
It was a stream.
It was a stream.
Just a stream.
So, I don't know when our dam was constructed. We do own a dam. Well, I shouldn't say we, the Watershed Commission owns a dam, and that's what holds the water into the basin now. That dam has basically been in place for, over 50, 60 years now, and it's filled in with sediment. I've been told there used to be a practice. There is a valve, a sluice valve, that you could open up and drain the basin. And I used to be told they used to have a practice. They'd go up there once a year and open that thing wide open, and just to scour and to clean the pipe out. But obviously that's not a great thing because it would dump. Well before my time here, somebody said, "Hey, better knock that off. Let's not be doing that." So it hasn't been in practice, and basically the sediment has built up in the basin. It's not a cheap endeavor. You'd be looking at, what was the number?
8 million for the basin.
Oh, it was 11 million.
11 total.
11 total.
In 10 years.
For the basin alone.
Yeah. So it's not a small amount of money.
And that would only be 2 or 3 feet of the sediment, right? 2 to 3 feet or 3 feet?
Well, that
It
raises
varies.
a good point, because nobody knows, right?
Nobody
So
knows.
Nobody knows how much.
I thought it was a really good report. I thought several folks here were at the meeting. I thought they did a good presentation. But I think the immediate thing that LawPac ought to do as a follow-up to this is do the core sampling. Because nobody knows that answer, right? This was never a lake or a pond. It was a stream, and it's been built up all this time. No one really knows what's in there and what would have to be sucked out. So some of these issues about dredging and the dosing stations, we need more information, I think, before anyone would be able to make a good decision about what they ought to do there.
So actually, I was going to bring this up. So on the wastewater side, I informed the sewer board. The state revolving loan funds, there's a drinking water SRF, state revolving loan. There's also a clean water SRF, that's for wastewater. It's not only for wastewater plants, it's for, we actually got a clean water SRF grant when we did the alum treatment to the lake, because you're applying this to a great pond. Their open enrollment for applications is right now. The deadline to apply is April 8th. This project would qualify for a study to do just what you had said ought to be done. I'm going to be getting that over to Erica to submit an application. I did run it through Kevin yesterday. I'm kind of hoping, I would like to see us apply for this through Lewiston, because I'm also applying for a clean water SRF grant already, and I did run this by Kevin, and he said sure. So Erica is going to run for this application through Lewiston, but it'll be for a clean water SRF grant to do this study. So we'll see if we get it.
Mike, if I may, Ken Wagner said at last week's LawPac meeting that there's money left in his contract amount, which he basically said there's more that's been approved. If you want to use it for like core sampling purposes.
It's not enough of that.
Right.
It's not enough of that, no.
But
He has some money
it could be
left
put
over,
in the
but it's,
pot.
yeah, unfortunately it can't be because the work we did for him, we got through a grant. And if we don't use it, you can't just put it in the next piggy bank. It's, you didn't use all of it, you lose it. But, yeah. So yeah, just an FYI on that. If anyone has any questions on that report, just let me know.
So the other comment I'd make about this is, those who were at Ken's meeting, he kind of, took everybody to the woodshed about watershed management activities as a threshold thing everybody should be doing. A lot of it's because little's going on in the upper watershed town. So from a city perspective, we've worked with LawPac, and we're gonna have a meeting with Ken specifically about the piece within the Auburn boundary, because, right, there's a lot of things that have been done over time and are currently in use. Dan and who else is on the committee? Are you on the committee with Dan on the city?
The Lake Stakeholders.
Yeah,
Group.
yeah, you're on
meeting
the
tomorrow.
stakeholders group. To meet with Ken to basically say, okay, here's all the types of activities the city's put in ordinance, or the things that we're missing, or right? So that if there's other watershed management activities that he would recommend, then the city can put that in a pile of things that we're looking at and see if there's other things that ought to be done. So
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll let you know what happens when we should be meeting with them in the next few weeks.
Okay. Anything else here, or ready to move on to
Move on.
old business? Okay. Water quality update.
Well, water quality is okay. Turbidity is at average. We're at 0.7 NTUs, which is average for this time of year. Unfortunately, this warm weather. You'll probably see an article in the paper, if it wasn't in there today, I didn't look at the paper today, it might be in there tomorrow, about the short duration of ice coverage on Lake Auburn. I know the press has been reaching out to us pretty heavy, looking for a story on this. So we only had 54 days of ice coverage, which is our shortest ice coverage season ever. We had a very late ice on, and we had a very early ice off. One thing that this does impact directly is, and I know this gets brought up a lot, is the gull management. Normally we don't have to worry about gulls for another 2 months. We're already running patrols, the gulls are already showing up. It does affect costs. It also makes the lake more susceptible. That's more sunlight getting in, that's more chances for nutrients, in addition to these large storms that we just keep having. The only good news that I could say with these large storms, Lake Auburn has typically been considered like a bathtub. It takes a very long time for the water to turn over. Not been the case for the last year. We've had a lot of water flowing through the lake. That's an only positive thing in this, is that it's turning the water over pretty quickly. Last year it kept our temperatures pretty low because the amount of inflow that we had going on. But it's not good stuff. We gotta hope for some normalcy here at some point. But that's what I have on water quality update.
Okay. Cost apportionment discussion update.
So yes, about a month ago now, Andy Titus, myself, met with Kevin and Heather Hunter from the city of Lewiston. We talked about cost apportionment. The one thing that we decided as a group was that we were going to do two things. Heather was going to look into accounting standards and practices, and Kevin and I were going to work together on a list of questions that we would ask the drinking water program in regards to amending our agreements, our current agreement, and what it would look like if we made changes to those. How would that be impacted by the drinking water program? Would they have say over this? What are their thoughts? So we sent those questions to Amy. She gave us some initial feedback, and she's actually willing to talk to us. So when I go up and talk about LCRR on April 10th, I'm going to stay for another hour and talk to her about these questions. So this is just an FYI on that. So
Just a quick comment on that. Just the savings alone. If if we were like 64-36 on this $11 million that we have to fund LawPEC, if we were to do that, it's a $1,540,000, which is like $230,000 more than our entire capital improvement budget for this year. So, I mean, they've been stalling Lewis, and they have every reason to. You know, they're paying 50% of 64% of the water this month, 61%.
And the good news is we have an open discussion going, so I think that's,
So is there another meeting scheduled?
Not at this time. I think once we get that information back from Amy, then we can schedule the next meeting.
I was just gonna say that I've done a lot of cost allocation things in my career, you know, different, among utilities and among states in New England, and so, you know, if you want some help looking at that kind of stuff, I'm not sure. There's nothing here I could comment on because there's no information, but.
Right.
We need some precedents, like another shared utility that's doing it by water use. Like right now, sewer is apportioned by use, but water isn't.
Yeah, we've been working on this for a number of years, Dennis. There's a lot of back history of this. Essentially, our agreements, interlocal agreements with Lewiston are set right now that we share certain costs 50-50. Some costs are apportioned based off from flow and usage. Some umbrella costs like watershed management, the Watershed Protection Commission are funded 50-50. And the agreements bind us to that. There's been a lot of discussion, you know, could we change this? You know, could we have it more flow proportioned? Lewiston does not seem to be, they're not objective to this, but obviously it means the agreement would change. The agreement says 50-50. If you're gonna change that, you gotta change the agreement.
Can Dennis join you on the next meeting with Heather, since Andy's gone now? If he's interested in that?
Certainly.
Okay.
You know, Andy Titus, who was on the board for a number of years, was on this, I don't know, call it a subcommittee or a working group, meeting with Heather and Kevin, and right now we haven't backfilled that, so.
So I would suggest that before we have another meeting again, we go back and follow up with Mike Auburn on the statements he made at the last meeting, right? Because Dennis hasn't been here before, but there's really two sets of agreements. There's one agreement related to the lake water quality issues, and that's the 1993, what a lot of people call a basic agreement. And then there's many MOUs and agreements, I counted them out, there's gonna be 20 at least, that deal with more about the operational, pump the stuff out of the lake and treat it. What Mike said at the last meeting, if people will recall, is the basic agreement is 50-50, and it unless there's a mutual agreement to the parties to change that, the only way it can be voided is by breach. So, I don't know, it doesn't sound like to me, Mike, that Lewiston was saying that they're open. I think from what you said before, the discussion was more about the operational piece, not
Right.
about the water quality piece.
It was, yeah.
So, there's not agreement, I don't think, amongst the board about this, what the basic agreement says, which will have a significant impact on our negotiating position with Lewiston. So I think if there's any question about that, we should get a memo from Mike, just like was received about the upper watershed management, you know, and the ability to enforce Auburn Water District ordinances, or they're not ordinances, they're bylaws on.
well, I think the
Yeah,
process,
watershed.
sorry to interrupt, but part of the process that they started, correct me if I'm wrong, this is relevant, is to itemize any of the line items that were in question, to filter through. When we said we were gonna get an auditor involved to try to talk through, I don't know if the alum treatment was one example that popped into my mind, where they said, this is a maintenance related treatment. But because of the way we interpreted it, and we did it in a hurry, we could have questioned it and said, that's just one that pops into my mind, it's probably not the only one, but there were other line items, I think, that we agreed to at least identify. And that was the starting, everyone agreed, let's get an auditor involved to start that process. And is that right where we are now, or did we stop?
That discussion was before I ever got involved in this group, because that was where it left off, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago, that was where they were at. They said, well, why don't we get the auditor to really go through the accounts and say, well, what is being split? And is it being split, how is it being split? When we got back together, the discussion was, Andy's asked was, are you willing to pay more? And the response was, well, yeah, but we need to understand what agreement would have to change if we paid more. And we gravitated towards operationally, how would we change this? And we talked about, well, we've got staffing, we've got, all of these different parts that make up operations. And that's where when you get into operationally, you're regulated by the drinking water program on your operation. You each have public water system ID numbers. If you were to form a LOPCA, you would essentially have or not form a LOPCA, let's just say if the water district, our water district just ran the facility, would that all fall under our public water system ID number? And then we just, here's the meter, we charge Lewiston based off from you use 61% of the flow, you pay 61% of the bill. So that's where we wound up with that last conversation. That's the only meeting I've gone to on cost apportionment. That's where we wound up.
And that makes sense in that there's many of these agreements, and I don't know if everybody's read through them, but it's a convoluted stack of stuff, right? And literally over time, these have evolved, but Christ, the checklist would probably be about 5 pages long of things and which way do you do it. So clearly, these questions to the drinking water group are great about the operational piece and potentially doing it a different way and clarifying all this pile of things over the years and coming to some agreement. I think that's great. What hasn't been discussed is the water quality piece, which is, I think, what you're referring to, and I think we all need to get on the same page about knowing where we actually are for a legal basis of that before we get into approaching Lewiston. I know what Lewiston's point is, and they've already been to their attorneys, and they already have their understanding of what that agreement is, and not necessarily the same as what everybody thinks on the board.
So I'm only concerned because the end game is a $50 million filtration plant. That's going to be a separate agreement like the UV plant. And if they just stamp it like they did the UV plant, it was 50-50 because of the 93 agreement, they were going to be in for it.
Yeah, so I'll just give you my take on that. I think the UV plant was negotiated. It wasn't based on the 93 agreement from reading through all those documents. I think it's an excellent issue, though, because it goes to this piece that the discussion has been started on about this operational piece and how is that going to work. So it's not, there's all kinds of ways you could do it. You could put a meter on there, and if you've got to build a $50 million plant, then it might be averaged out over whatever the last 3 years' numbers were or something. One pays, because this is what you're expecting to happen. One pays this much, one pays that much. So I think we should continue to go down that road. That's what's been started, and see if all of that, all those agreements can be basically wrapped into a new agreement that's all encompassing. Somebody could just go to and read the thing and understand right away how this is being done. I think that's great.
Well, there's a lot of work there, because I think we have some of these agreements, half an employee.
Oh, yeah,
things.
it's
So-
very
But
convoluted.
is there a meeting scheduled, or is it just on hold
With
until we
drinking
get?
water program, there's a
Okay.
meeting scheduled.
So, do you want to keep volunteering for things? Do you
There's a
want
lot
to?
of work to do here. You said it was April 11th?
That one would just be myself meeting with the drinking water program, but once we get that feedback, we then schedule one with Heather and Kevin, and then certainly, if you want to come up to the drinking water program one, you're welcome to, but I think when we get that group back together would be the best time.
This is, when's the April meeting? Not too long after that, right?
April trustee meeting, yeah, would be this 19th. We took down our
I mean, it's
calendar.
9 days. You could give us a report on what happened up there,
Yeah.
and then we can figure out what to do.
The next step,
Yep.
okay?
Meanwhile, I've got some homework to do.
Okay. All right, so I think we can close that out for now and to be determined what the next steps are there. Next here is Lake Auburn Stakeholders Group, we're already at.
Yeah, I'll make
So,
this one quick. I have another
Ad hoc
meeting
committee.
tomorrow. Those have been going really well. The big topic is septic inspections, how to break these out over, a 5-year period, how many of them to do a year, how to prioritize them, how do we engage, and how do we fund. The meetings have been going pretty well. We have one tomorrow. The water quality ad hoc group, right now I think we're meeting next month sometime. I have to look at my.
Every other Thursday.
No, the water quality
Oh,
ad
water
hoc.
quality, yeah.
That one was set ahead quite a bit, but, so yeah, nothing really to
that's the
report
one
there.
that Steve's on?
Correct,
Steve
yep,
is helping with?
Yep. So,
Okay,
I know that we're gonna be applying for some grants, through the drinking water program for source water protection. We could potentially get up to $40,000 and could put that towards, public education and, septic inspections and getting that whole program set up, so.
great. Okay, skipping along, Lakeshore Drive MPI.
So Lakeshore Drive, that one is just, I did talk with Kevin about this. He supports the project. This is where we received that grant. We did sign the commitment letter. We've got 3 years to get this project done. He is going to be talking with Lewiston City Council about funding that. His quick reaction was that maybe this is a watershed item where it's not really an operational at the treatment plant, and wondered if maybe this should be run through the commission while still being funded by us. I actually tend to agree with that. We don't generally expend our operational money or our capital money to rebuild roads that don't have anything to do with water and sewer lines. So to me, this does feel more like a watershed thing. So it will be on the agenda for the next watershed commission.
The Auburn Water District, because of the way the money was granted the Auburn Water District, right? So
Right, correct.
The water district would have to.
We'd have to own the funding of it
Right.
and run it through us, but, could it be a
Lewiston money
project?
coming through.
Right,
that.
through the
That
commission.
makes sense.
Yep, so we're gonna talk about that at the next commission meeting.
Okay. Next, we have SRF loan grant award.
I think my update for you there was we're not getting the truck till August. I think I already
Okay.
told you that.
Check. DWP letter.
At the last meeting, I told you we'd gotten a letter from them. I then wrote a letter to Eric Cousins, just making sure that they knew, one, thank you guys for all the work you're doing, and then two, please make sure we address these concerns of the drinking water program, and I've already gotten a response, that's in progress, so it's just an FYI.
Okay.
The last piece was if we could go into executive session to,
So do we have a motion to suspend the rules to move into executive session to discuss?
legal matter 4056C.
Okay, 4 or 5, 6.
Motion, Kevin,
So
and
moved.
second.
Okay,
Dan?
second.
All in favor? Okay, let's go. Unanimous.
All right,
Okay, let's see.
let me just turn that camera off.
Gentlemen, I have to excuse myself. Good night, and I'll see you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Camera's
Yes, I'm
on, Diane's.
Declaring us out of executive session.
Diane's gonna come back in.
And the camera's back.
No members of the public are
The
present.
number's the 15.
Did they take off or?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, so,
Camera's on.
okay, declaring us out of executive session. So,
Okay, so as follow-up to the executive session, I would make a motion that we rebate to the customer at 109 Davis Street, $15,769.68 for overcharges and interest in billing errors following the advice of the PUC on how to handle overcharge rebates.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second?
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Motion? Okay.
Perfect.
Unanimous.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
Trustee open
sorry.
session, trustee
Sorry.
open session, man. You
Yeah.
can leave, but trustee
No,
open
it's
session,
good.
anybody?
No.
Do
All
we
good?
want purchasing policy for future agenda item? Do we
Yeah, it'll
need
be
that
on there.
It'll be
Okay.
on there. So we have a motion and a second to adjourn, I guess, no trustee open session. All in favor? Okay,
Yes.
thanks, guys.